Welcome to Awakening Warriors, where we talk about life, learning, lessons in love.
Life, love, lessons, and learning.
Life, learning, lessons, and love.
Life, love, lessons, and life, love, lessons, and learning.
Anyway, we talk about those four things.
And more.
And more. Probably. Let's see, you like to do a little recap of our week.
Yeah. Which there ain't really a whole lot going on this week.
Yeah, I don't think so. Did some garage sailing yesterday, which is always fun. It's a beautiful morning out today here. It's been so hot, and we've had a couple days of rain, and so this morning is like cool and crisp and sunny, and got a nice breeze.
Yeah, it's been hot as shit all week, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about through my week. There's nothing exciting. Pretty much the usuals. Yoga, work. Nothing really crazy new at work or anything, so. Yeah. Anyways.
Well, let's just dive in then.
Okay, go ahead. Dive right in.
Discipline is our topic for today. This came up when you were reading a book that you're reading, and you were like, oh, this is a good topic. And then we just kind of had a little brief chat about a couple things that we made sure, or that we wanted to make sure we hit on. So.
Yeah, for me, discipline's been like in and out as far as certain life aspects. And my discipline like moves in and out, like flows, ebb and flows, you know.
Ebbs and flows.
So, as does everybody, but like you always have to hold a certain degree of discipline for everything. You know, whether that's emotional discipline, physical discipline, mental discipline.
Spiritual, emotional, in your relationship.
Yeah. So what is discipline? What would you describe discipline as being?
Do you have a definition? Or you just want to know mine?
No, I'll tell you mine. Unless you want to tell me yours.
I don't know that I would necessarily call this like a definition, but what encompasses discipline in my mind is like intentional, I don't know if I want to say focus, intentionality with your habits that move you forward.
Here, I'm going to make it a lot simpler.
Doing things. Sure, go ahead.
Self-accountability. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. It doesn't have to be necessarily even only your habits. It's just like how you live your life. You know, self-accountability.
Which is comprised of your habits.
Yeah, but even outside of your habits, like you can do things that are discipline that are outside of your habits as well. So I just break it down to self-accountability. That's what, to me, discipline is. So, holding yourself accountable for your actions and your thoughts and your, everything that goes, your emotions. So.
Your decisions.
Yep. So yeah, I think saying habits kind of pigeonholes you.
But even like
pigeonholes you. Corners you essentially. So.
Even your thoughts though are habits, like
yeah.
That's why they're thinking patterns.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, it just comes down to, for me, discipline is just self accountability, and a lot of people will let themselves off the off of accountability, based off of their lack of effort or intentionality or, lack of caring.
It makes me think about, especially with your self-accountability piece, Ed Mylett saying like self-confidence is self-trust. So like trusting yourself to say like if you're choosing a discipline that has to do with working out, I'm going to work out 3 times this week, and then you get 1 in, then your intentionality wasn't there, your effort wasn't there, your self-accountability wasn't there, and then you're lacking in discipline.
Yeah, you don't deserve to have that self-confidence because, like you were just mentioning, Ed Milet talks about self-confidence does equal self-trust. So if you say you're going to do something and then you do it, well then you know you can trust yourself. You deserve to have that self-confidence because you're building it essentially. Whereas if you drop the ball and you don't show up, then why would you have confidence? Because that's reinforcing a bad behavior, and you're saying in your mind you're basically failing yourself. Like
Right. You can't trust yourself.
Yeah, yep. So why would anybody else trust you? Because you can't even fucking trust yourself. So I'm sure they're not gonna trust you if you break a promise to me. So then if you break a promise to yourself, you're obviously not gonna trust yourself. So that's really where it comes down to. And fuck, I mean, you could stop the podcast right there and just be like, that's the show. There you go. Like that's the golden nugget that you can walk away with. But there's a little excerpt out of this book that I've recently started reading.
What is it?
Mind Power by Mike Argariolo. I don't know. I can't remember his name.
Aguiliaro, I think.
So we actually got this book for free at a event, and
he was one of the speakers, and we all got his book for free.
Yeah. And it's really good. I highly recommend it. I'm not that far into it, but just seeing what he talks about, like vibration, and it's all about like your mind and stuff thus far. So, get all ready. Until you begin to keep the promises you make to yourself, it will be impossible for you to trust yourself. If you don't trust yourself, you cannot trust your thoughts, words, and deeds will get you the results that you are hoping for in life. This is one of the areas that is rarely touched upon when people are adopting the principles of manifestation. And it goes on to talk about basically for the scenario that you're going to starting to eat healthier, right? You're like, okay, I'm gonna, I'm fat, I'm overweight, whatever, and I'm going to only eat pizza and wings and shitty on the weekends. Like that's a great start as far as discipline, because it's easier to say that than go to the fullest extreme. Like I'm not gonna eat anything bad.
You still want attainable, especially if you're gonna start like disciplining yourself. Like you can't go from 0 discipline with this thing to 100% discipline with this thing.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be sustainable for you.
So like for us, for example, we only drink caffeine on, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So there's 3 days that we do drink caffeine and there's 4 days that we don't, because we recognize caffeine is not a good, it's not something beneficial in your life. Yeah, it's not beneficial in your life.
At all.
You become addicted, you become reliant.
High your cortisol levels.
Yeah. The way caffeine actually works, it just it spikes your fight or flight system, and for you, obviously, if you drink caffeine consistently, you can actually see the physical effects based off your headaches. Like if you drink caffeine for a week,
dependent on it pretty quick.
Yeah, you'll start, and after a week of drinking caffeine, you stop drinking caffeine for a day or so, like you'll start getting headaches almost immediately. And just that shows me that that's not a positive thing that we should be putting into our bodies regularly, and we shouldn't even be doing it.
Well, even though we were doing it's regular. Every weekend.
Yeah, but we're disciplined. We're extremely disciplined. Right. I can't remember a day that, that I decided like, oh, I'm just going to have it, on a Monday or a Tuesday or a whatever day. There might be a day that I don't know.
Well, when we were on vacation, but that...
Yeah.
And maybe we'll talk about that too. Like that's part of the ebb and flow. Like sometimes you have like a big shift, and so the discipline changes. But then when we get back into town, we get our stuff back together.
Yeah, exactly, definitely. So that's one of the things that we particularly put into place that shows us for discipline, and and it is a lot of habits. Like that is a habitual thing. So is working out. Working out is habitual. Ice baths are habitual. Reading is habitual, and so it's really easy to relate those things into your discipline, so
what else you got in there?
Well, that's basically what kind of started it off for me, was the fact that You got to be able to trust yourself. And how do you, because it says, how you do anything is how you do everything. So if you can't stick to your guns on eating pizza, how can you trust yourself on doing much bigger and more important things? You know, like and like these things are the small things, right? Like your eating habits are such a. I mean, it is a huge thing. It's a huge part of your life, but it's such a small discipline in the grand scheme of things. Like if you want to build, you know, a multi-million-dollar company compared to your eating habits. You know, your eating habits are much simpler to, you know, get into check, you know. So I always start with physical things because physical things are, like, to me, the most basic and most level, you know, things. So, like, if you get your body under control, you can get your finances under control, and then you can get your relationship under control, and so on and so forth. Because that's kind of how it, you know, there's like tiers and levels to this, to the game of discipline, essentially. You know, if you can't fucking keep your body under control, how do you expect to keep your finances under control? If you can't keep your finances under control, well, guess what? There's a direct correlation in your relationship, like, because if you don't have money and you can't, you know, I don't know how to say it, but that's a relationship stressor, essentially. You know what I mean? So then that's going to be a point of conflict in your relationship, you know? So then, you know, it just keeps rolling. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm just smiling because was it yesterday or the day before you said you were going to work on stop saying and so I was distracted. And you said you know a lot. But anyway, I do know what you mean. And we were talking about this yesterday, not that we necessarily have an answer, but you brought up discipline equals freedom. And you're like, I don't know how, but I've heard that. I'm like, same, I've definitely heard that.
Yeah, we should have looked it up before. It was really good.
It was really good.
Yeah, the quote, the conception of it. So, I don't know if we should, like, Google it or whatever. Do you have your phone on you?
No.
Of course you don't.
Why would I?
And then...
I'm focused on what I'm doing. But I guess that makes sense because we're using yours for that. Well, I think what it makes me think of in terms of discipline equals freedom, I think it's more like, because if you don't have any discipline, like you said, things are a mess. Your body's a mess, your finances, your relationships, your, like as Sean would say, like your house is not in order. And so those individuals don't have true freedom. They are so bound by so many different things because they aren't choosing to have discipline. And I brought this quote up too, but you can either choose to have the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. So there are things, because discipline isn't always fun. A lot of times it's not, I feel like.
You can also talk about, like, you know, like people that don't have discipline, they're kind of coaxed by drugs or sugar, you know, basically
Right.
It all comes down to
That's
drugs.
what they're
So,
more
like
like
nicotine.
slaves. They're slaves to more things because they're choosing not to have discipline intentionally.
Yeah, yep. And we can also dive into you know, the fact of, like, instant gratification, you know. So, like, you're constantly just chasing the shiny penny, or, you know, just going to that instant relief or, you know, happiness, or, you know, that surface level shit. Whereas, like, if you, oh fuck, what was the thing that I just read? It was basically there's the three things you can't buy. Like, you can't buy your health, you can't buy a good relationship, and you can't buy, fuck, what was it? I forgot. But basically, all those things are earned. You have to earn all those things. Like, you have to earn health. You can't just give somebody money and have health. You have to
Right.
actually have those. You have to have the discipline in order to create that type of health, and you have to have discipline in order to create that type of relationship. You know, so even, like, my discipline in communicating my thoughts and stuff like that in the relationship, like, because sometimes it's just easier to avoid those types of certain conversations and not have to deal with the fucking backlash or whatever, you know. And then you also have to look on that same side of the coin and say, okay, you know, he's obviously coming to me with these things. It's my job to keep, you know, my emotional discipline, you know, and not, you know, come up in an uprise or some shit and off the handle.
Uproar?
Yeah, kind of like you did this morning when I was choking you.
That's different.
No, it's not. Pissing
Yeah,
me
because
off.
it was also like a physical, like I was just like, get off me. Like, why are you messing with me? And then it's irritating because like you're way stronger than I am, and so you exert certain forces, and I'm like, dude, that's what I just said. Like, you need to be fragile, or I'm fragile.
I taught you
be
something.
Gentle with me.
But I taught you something. You're like, why do you have it on my...
Okay.
Would you rather have all the pressure straight on your throat?
Oh my gosh. The point is, because sometimes you'll do that too, where you'll like hold on to me or not let me go, and it's just that physical like, I'm out of control that makes me like, ugh! Like I have no control because you're literally... Anyway, that is what's it called? Rabbit holing, trap, I don't know. Anyway, doesn't matter. But
I think discipline also gets like a bad connotation because it sounds like such a... It's not a dirty word, but it's like, I don't know how to describe it. Like when I think of discipline, I think of like the military and stuff. Like it's not satisfying. It's miserable. Like, you know, like even doing the ice baths, like that is a very like miserable thing to do at times. You know, so like it's just, I don't know. It's just a giant cloud around discipline in a whole. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So, obviously, you have to be able to kind of change your outlook on that word because it's, you know, it's not a dirty word. I just think it's, you know, viewed upon as a dirty word, essentially. It's not, like I said, it's not dirty. It's just like, you know, there's this essence held on it that's just like, it's fixed and rigid. It was like what I said before. It's like a fixed and rigid word.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier. Like discipline, it generally isn't super fun. Like when you're doing the thing, when you're doing your discipline. Sometimes it can be, depending, like our reading discipline. Like sometimes I really enjoy that, and I'm like super into it and excited to get to my book. And there are other times, like the ice bath. Like 95% of the time, as I'm like walking my way to the ice bath, my head is like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And then I get there and I'm like, okay, it's only 3 minutes. Like I'll feel better afterward. I know that, but like the thing itself is not.
It's interesting. That's what you think when you go to do that.
It depends.
I literally just kind of blank out. It's not like, I don't even know how to describe it. I'll just like, it's not, I can just kind of like shut my mind like down, like emotional. And then I'll just focus on like walking or something like that. And then I'll just be like, oh, I'm here at the ice bath as I open the thing. I'll be like, oh shit, I'm here kind of thing.
Weird.
Yeah, I just kind of shut it down until...
Dissociate. Anyway.
Yeah, I disassociate.
Dissociate.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not like every time, but there are definitely times when I'm like, it's more of like a begrudgingly, like, ugh.
I wonder if I can do that. Well, it's almost like the detached thing, you know, is detaching just the same thing as dissociating?
Basically.
Yeah, wow.
You're like removing yourself.
That's one of my biggest skills, I think, that I've been able to enhance in my life.
It's more like a survival skill. If you're not actually in danger, it's not necessarily.
Yeah,
it's removing you from the present moment. But maybe yours is more present. Because if you're focusing on your walking, you're not dissociating. You're present.
Yeah, yes and no.
But if you're like surprised when you show up at the ice bath, that to me
I'm not like shocked. I'm like, oh fuck, what am I doing?
How did I get here?
Yeah.
No, I know what you mean though, but like, oh, okay, like.
Yeah.
But anyway.
We should talk about that someday and being like a big skill, because obviously my childhood was able to, you know, develop that.
Oh, like, for sure.
So.
That's where it comes from.
Yeah. And so, obviously, if you're able to, like, because that's where, you know, and this is a slight rabbit hole, like, if you're, like, people, like, look at that as trauma and stuff like that. Again, if you're able to take that trauma and shift it and, you know, use those coping mechanisms and skills that you developed in your childhood or in your later years or whatever as an adult, like, fuck.
If they're helpful, yes. A lot of time the issue is they're no longer serving a purpose. You just fall into those habits and patterns.
Yeah, it's a pattern, and that's what I'm saying. If you can
pattern.
Habits and patterns. If you can gain control of that skill and use it as a you know, beneficial thing in your life. Where were we just at?
Discipline does not have to be fixed and rigid, but disciplines a lot of the time are not super fun.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it gets its like negative connotation.
Yeah. Oh, getting up early in the morning. Because for us, at the very end of the night, we're watching TV. And so for us, it's more discipline just to go to bed and get up early rather than stay up later at night and watch more TV. You know what I mean? Obviously, take advantage of that opportunity. So, fuck. I keep not trying to say
You can
it.
just do silence.
Yeah, but it's so hard
You
not
don't have to fill that.
All right, I'm on a freaking. Go ahead, take it over.
I don't know. I think
regroup.
Well, okay. So kind of like we talked about earlier with the ebbs and the flows, because this comes back to like being fixed and rigid. You also need to be, or not. You don't want your disciplines to be super fixed and rigid, because there will come times in life when you need them to be flexible. Because things will happen, stuff will change, life will occur, and so things will need to shift a little bit. So if, like you were saying yesterday, if you didn't get your workout in the morning, but a friend of yours wants to go play badminton, I can use that kind of as my exercise because I didn't get it in this morning. I was planning to get it in the afternoon, but so-and-so wants to go hang out, and I'm going to build that relationship with this person and get a workout in. So we have the ability within discipline to be flexible to make it work for our life, because the fixed and rigid army type style really only works when you're in boot camp or in the army or for normal everyday living. Things will happen and things will come up that you need to be able to be flexible with your disciplines.
I think for responsible individuals, you don't have to be fixed and rigid. That's what it comes down to. Because if you're in the beginning of discipline, there's a good chance it's gonna be fixed and rigid. You're not used to this, you don't want to do it, so it's naturally fixed and rigid because that's how it begins. But now for me, going to bed at between 8 and 9 and getting up between 4 and 5 isn't that big of a deal. It's what I fucking do,
And I think in the beginning, if you need it to be more fixed and rigid because you're more likely to get it done that way, then do it that way. But I think overall, long-term sustainability-wise, but I also think because even our workout situation tends to be a little bit fixed and rigid, because if we don't get it done in the morning, we don't do it. And it's not that we don't have time. It's not that we can't make it work. We're just we missed the morning workout time.
Yeah, to a degree, but I also know that I'm going to hit it 3 other times this week or something like that.
Yeah.
So if I choose to miss it today, then that just means that I'll have to hit it, later.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. So
even that other day, because I said something about you said something about consistency, and I said consistency. I'm when was the last time we were in the gym? And you were like, Sunday or whatever. You were like, God forbid I missed 2 days, and I was like, oh yeah. It has only been 2 days, but the fact that we missed 2 days in a row to me at that time felt like a lot, because we were on vacation, so we didn't work out, and then we got home and we got back into the routine, and we were very consistent and very disciplined with it. And then we went the first 2 days probably in a row, and that my system was like, geez, we haven't been in here in forever. And then you pointed it out, and it was only 2 days, and I was like, oh, good for us. I said good for me, but
there is a concept, philosophy, I can't think of his name, his full name, but his name's Mike from Transformation Church. Can you tell us about that?
With discipline?
Yeah. Kind of like the hot thing, humble, open, transparent. He had another good one.
Clearly, I don't know what you're talking about. You're waiting for this expected.
I'm trying to rattle your mind a little bit, trying to shake it up, see if anything falls out. Discipline develops to devotion, something along those lines. You remember it now? So he specifically talks about it, in biblical terms, and he talks about how reading the Bible and praying and everything else. He's like, it's not, and going to church, and he's like, it's not easy all the time. He talks about in the beginning, it's discipline. It is discipline. So you have to keep yourself disciplined in order to keep your mind in the Word and keep praying and keep going to church. And then he's like, eventually that it grows into a love so great that it becomes devotion. So in the beginning he fixed and rigid, essentially. It's disciplined. And it's hard because you don't want to do it, and you kind of resisting because you're having those thoughts like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. And for me, like my mind, I'm like, I don't want to think I don't want to do this, because then it's going to make it that much harder. I just stop thinking, and then I'm just show up, basically.
It makes me feel more like a badass when my brain is being a little biatch and I freaking do it anyway.
Yeah, but you're still reinforcing that habit. As far as, because at the end of the day, your subconscious mind is like, you're reinforcing the fact that you should say not do it. And at the end of the day,
it happens every single time I go into the ice bath. It was an example.
And this is an example too, dear. This isn't, nothing's through and through. There's
dear.
always
Now
outliers.
we're getting condescending. Got it. Sounds good.
Well, I never said
you
that.
were like, discipline to devotion. That's where you were going here.
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
So, in the beginning, it's fixed and rigid. And then as you grow and develop, like I said, going to bed at fucking 8 p.m. and then getting up at 4 a.m. Like, that's just like, it's not necessarily that I love it and whatever, like there's not a strict devotion, but it does get easier. So these concepts go hand in hand. Like, it's just like what I do. I get up at, we'll say probably 5 out of 7 days I get up between 4 and 4:30. And the other days, like yesterday, I think it was like 5:30 maybe. Was it later? Oh, okay, gotcha.
Anyway. Yeah,
Anyway.
because you texted Joel.
Oh yeah, that's right. I think it was like 6:50.
Yeah, pretty close.
Yeah.
But we stayed up later too.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. So like, even drinking for me, like I was much more. I feel like I was much more disciplined when I lived in Michigan for whatever reason, and I don't know why that is. Excuse me.
Absolutely.
Because I had very similar opportunities and all that jazz. So I don't know if it's like the energy around here, or I don't know if it's just me changing as an individual, or for the worse. I don't know. I know I've been getting a little bit better because so when our cat passed, like, I don't know, a week or two ago, I was looking through photos. 3 weeks ago already? Damn. I was looking through photos of him, and I was, saw a picture of myself, and I was like, Jesus. I was looking really good then. And not that I necessarily look horrible now, but in my mind, like, I'm like, fuck, dude, you can barely see my abs now, but like, you could see my, abs really good then. Like, they were like solidly defined. And so I was like, man, I'm getting fat. So I was like, it's probably because of my lack of discipline. And this is why it's like brought up in my
in your space?
Yeah, in my space, and that's why it popped out so hard, because I'm like, fuck, dude. And now I've recently changed that. So there's been a couple opportunities I could have been, I could have drank during the weekdays, and I'm not getting fucked up or whatever, but those are also unnecessary calories. That's unnecessary money spent. That's unnecessary, toxins in my body that I'm thinking about. Like, there's like boom, 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 and that's how I justify my, my way out of, making some of these poor choices, because I'm like, okay, it does this, and this, and that doesn't help. That's not going to move me forward. So I'm like, that's not going to get my body back to where I want it. That's not going to help my finances go, and that's not going to help, anything at all. So it does no benefit to me.
And I think we're focusing a lot on, like, reading, ice bath, getting up, working out, but we've got, like, the list we gave earlier of, like, mental discipline. I say like a lot. Mental discipline, emotional discipline. So one thing that I was just thinking of is, like, more along those lines is, are you disciplined when it comes to managing your own emotions and your own reactions or responses to people? Are you disciplined in managing your triggers? Are you disciplined in positive self-talk? Are you disciplined in...
I think emotions and emotional response is a very important thing that people need to be disciplined in. And I personally, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think I do it very well. I won't say extremely well, but I do it very well, especially when like not matching other people's emotional response, you know, or keeping cool in situations, because that has such a big impact on other people, you know, especially when you don't match their shit, is because it's a ripple effect thing, you know. It's just like you drop it in there, and then, you know, I'm shitty to that person, and then that person, you know, gets my energy, and, you know, they're shitty to the next person, the next person, the next person. I just told you about that one concept of basically you can't expect your child to be emotionally disciplined when you're not emotionally disciplined. Like, that's not how this works. You know, your children learn from you specifically and directly. So if you want your child not to throw a fucking temper tantrum or snap back at their brother or sister or you or grandpa or whatever, then you need not to snap back at them or your husband or your wife or their, you know, whoever it is, because that child is seeing that. So then your habits are therefore affecting, you know, that child. And then you get mad because that child treats you just like you did, you know, your spouse, or your spouse treated you, or some shit like that. It's just like, what the fuck? You literally just did that same thing. I see it all the time, and when, like, people go out to eat, like, I'll watch families, you know, interact and behave and, you know, stuff like that. And I'll see this happen, and then, you know, later, you know, during the meal or whatever, I'll see that person get mad at that kid from doing the basically the same exact thing. And it's just like, what the fuck? You literally just did that. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have this conversation. We don't have kids, but I think your disciplines are what you're disciplined in or not. When you have kids, there's probably so many lights shown on that, because you do have a reflection of a lot of it. So if you choose to be aware, your children will reflect or mirror back a lot of what you're modeling, because your kids will do what you do. They will not do what you say. So parents, I don't think people really say this, but you hear the, like, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
That's not how it works, at all.
But the reason that's happening is because, you know, your the child's subconscious mind is being programmed. You know, they're being programmed how to respond like that. You know, so it's easier just to say this empty saying, you know, this empty concept and this empty, you know, meaningless, essentially, sentence, because I just watched you for the past, you know, 5 years do this.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Whatever's modeled, like, that's what they will pick up on.
Yeah.
That's what their little sponge brains, all of the development that happens between 0 and 8, like, everything that's modeled is being implanted in there, not just what you say.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, speak nice to people, or, you know, be nice to so-and-so, and then the dad turns around and screams at mom, like, well, that's not. Like, your words are empty.
Yeah.
What you actually do has
nothing.
merit.
Yeah. Essentially, when you're raising a child, you're programming a computer. You know, your brain is an individual's brain is like a computer, and then, you know, you got, like, the software and the hardware. Like, the subconscious mind, I believe, is considered the hardware, and then the, you know, conscious mind is the software, something like that, along those terms. And so you have to be conscious of that, and that. I'm trying not to say I say and that fuck.
Hold on.
There it is.
I know, but I don't do that as much as you do. I don't remember. That's where I was going in my brain. Was, again, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Because in the parenting situation, you can have the pain of discipline of getting up early and doing your ice bath and reading and meditating and keeping your emotions in check when you're having conversations with your wife and treating people respectfully and all of these things. Or you cannot have a discipline in any of that or much of that, and then you're going to have a pain of regret when your kid grows up to be a man-child or a disrespectful person or a girl who is, like, walked all over in a doormat. Like, that's going to be your pain of regret, rather than you can have a pain of discipline in raising them. That makes me think about the guy who came to look at our yard, and he didn't necessarily need to work, but he's like, I have kids, and they're looking up to me, and so I chose to do this now because I'm not going to not work because my kids will see that.
Yeah. Dude's super cool. I like him. I forgot his name. Ryan. That doesn't matter.
We had and right there, back to back.
But yeah, it's fun to like bring him up. It's fun to watch him see that so important because he said he sat around for I don't remember how long he said or if he even did, but he mentioned like that was important for him to show that he doesn't it's not good just to sit around and do nothing even though you have you've essentially arrived so.
And I think about that with me because I joke about like being a trophy wife or a housewife or whatever. But you even just said it recently, like, I don't know that you not working would be good for your soul or whatever. And like,
No,
I
I
agree.
said it's not good for your soul and you aren't allowed to never completely work. That's what I said. Because you were laying in bed and I was like, you'll never be able to not ever work. You always have to do something.
It's not good for your soul.
It's not good for your soul.
And I agree with that. Like, I joke, and I mean, I would be happy working less, but I agree that if I had nothing...
Well, it serves a purpose. And it works for some people to be, essentially a full-time mom. But even outside of that, like, people need a purpose outside of their children. That is not healthy, in my personal opinion, for, parents to be tied to their child's, or their parents' worth, or your worth, to be tied to your child's, existence so much, so it's
right.
just
Especially because you as a human
thing.
Existed well before that individual, and so you also need to care for your own. I'm doing this as like the core you also need to do things that fill you up on your own that has nothing to do with anything external.
Yeah, your child could die tomorrow for fucking a billion reasons, and now your total existence and purpose is gone. That's not a healthy place to be because that's not you. That's not why you're here. You have other likes, interests, loves, all this other stuff. So,
oh, that's another one. Which again, we're not parents, but I think a lot of times when kids come into the picture, and we've had these conversations, so hopefully when the time comes, we're really disciplined about it. But people get very undisciplined in their relationship with their spouse, and I can understand, I guess, how it can go that way, but it's also like the only reason that being exists is because of you and your spouse and the relationship that you have. So if you go totally undisciplined here and go super disciplined there, this is going to lack and this is going to decrease and this connection is not going to be as important or prioritized, and that's not healthy or helpful. So like discipline, because things will shift and things will change, right? I talked about that already. Life will happen. Things will come up. Kids will be born, pets will die, bills are due, all of these things will happen, but you still need to prioritize your disciplines in terms of what's,
important to you in life.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what prioritizing is, but I think sometimes it can be easy to forget. And sometimes, again, ebbs and flows. Things will happen. Like, there are times we're not super connected and we're not disciplined in our connection or our kindness or our respect, like whatever that looks like. And then, but we can feel when it's like that, and we don't love when it's like that, and sometimes we have to have conversations about that, but then we readjust.
Yeah, and it doesn't just happen instantaneously either, so even, like, that's a really good discipline I think we've developed over the years is, acknowledging that we've been disconnected. And I think sometimes even, the conversation goes, it's usually me finding it less disconnected than you, I'm like, I don't think we've been that bad, and you...
I tend to have a catastrophic...
Yeah, I was about to go into that.
Thinking, though.
Yeah, so, it's... Yeah. Just stay disciplined, essentially. There's just discipline in an overall sense. Like, you can just pick buckets in your life that you want to stay disciplined in, and you can be like, well, I want to get in a better shape. I want to have a better connection with my wife, and then you can find those disciplines, those discipline activities, thoughts, whatever, in order to strengthen what you want to do. You know, if you want to strengthen your mind, then start reading and listening to podcasts and stuff like that.
Meditating.
If you want to strengthen your relationship with your wife, then find the discipline to, you know, keep your emotions in check and take her on date night and, you know, have honest conversations with her. You know,
Wake up 15 minutes earlier and spend 15 minutes with just you two. Like, it doesn't have to be massive, drastic, huge disciplines.
I think one of the most important things that couples can do together is go to bed and get up together at the same time. Like, that is massive. Because I hear about people, like, just in conversation, and I'm just like, damn, dude, you're like, yeah, I went to bed at this time, and then my wife went to bed, I think, like 2 hours later. I was like,
or yeah, like opposite. Like, I went to bed and he played video games for 3 hours. Like, we very rarely go to bed at different times, and even
I can't even tell you the last time I went to bed at different, unless it's like you're having to do a work thing, or, you know, I'm having to do a work thing, or, you know, and I still can't even remember. Okay, maybe, what was that one? Was there something in December or something? I can't remember.
Oh yeah, there was a party, right?
Yeah, and I think I got home at like 9 and you went to bed at 8 probably, or 8:30 or something like that. And so I was a little bit behind you, but, you know, but that's like, okay, you know, essentially you're staying disciplined in your habits. And I'll do the same thing if you ever, you know, have to, you know, be home late or whatever. Because I know, like, oh, you were on call. And I was just like, well, I'm not going to fucking stay up because you...
I was on the call.
Yeah.
It was like
I'm still
8:45, and so you went to bed.
Yeah, I went to bed, and,
weekend,
you know,
so.
because it's my discipline to do that. I could have got up and fuck it, but there would have been no point, you know, because I would have wasted more time on TV and you would have been working. But... you know, I could have made the choice and been disciplined and read a book, but I didn't. I decided to go to bed because that's that's the easiest thing for me to do rather than, you know, go read and stay focused and shit like that. So, yeah.
So there's lots of just lots of different areas of life where you can apply discipline and start to see changes and have things be more aligned with what you would like them to be.
You can always recognize someone that's a disciplined individual too. I think in the impact theory with Ed Mylett again, he talks about how, you know, you see a jacked individual, you know, like a in shape individual, and you're like, oh, that guy's self-confidence. He talks about self-trust and stuff like that, and like that's always what I think about. Like, even if whether they're healthy or not, or they're unhealthy, like, you know, if you can look at a gentleman that, you know, does steroids and is juiced out of his mind, he's still extremely disciplined because he's not getting like that without, you know, going to the gym. So, you know, just because an individual's, you know, jacked, it doesn't mean they're healthy. I just want to point that out there.
Well, and I think for you, which I think it makes sense, but a lot of times your examples are just physical stuff. But I think even, like, there have been times when, we were at Hocking Hills, I think, and we were, like, at a little waterfall thing, and somebody was sitting down and meditating. So, like, this person wasn't jacked to me, but the fact that they're in this, like, public place, in nature, sitting down meditating, like, that to me also proved, like, whoa, there's discipline there.
Yeah.
Or if people... like, you can just tell sometimes, too, again, when you're out in public, like, if there's a family, when a family is connected and their kids are well-behaved. And, I mean, I also get you don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but I also think that we're pretty intentional and aware and mindful of things that we are probably pretty right when it comes to those things. But you can just tell, like, wow, they probably have their shit together, like, discipline-wise, when, I don't know, I think you can just... feel it maybe, and maybe that's just easy for me to say because I'm a good empath, so I can just tell sometimes certain things, but...
yeah, definitely, there's more of an essence of, like, you know, an energy of a disciplined individual rather than somebody that's, you know, kind of a slob and, you know, doesn't really take care of themselves.
And again, that might be if they're in great shape, sure, but also somebody choosing to meditate in this public place, that's great too, or seeing somebody... like my boss who's, like, scaled a business, like, I know that she has to be disciplined in the way that she's, like, built a business like this, and so.
And you can have really good discipline in one area and be completely trash in another area. You can, like, be the greatest businessman in the world as far as discipline and then fucking completely throw your family to the wayside. You know, there are very disciplined individuals, and that a lot of that comes down to like, you know, what's important in your life. You know, is your family important? Is your finances or business or body, or, you know, like I think everything should be important as far as those categories go.
I was just thinking about that, like a well-rounded
Yep.
human.
And there's going to be times where things will get thrown to the wayside naturally, because that's just the season of life, essentially. Like, you are, like, if you're going to build a business, then you're going to be pulled away from your family more than, you know, if you were not building a business. Yeah, it's just natural. It's just, and that's okay. But you have to, you know, have those conversations. You have to be disciplined to have those conversations with your family and be like, hey, listen, fam, I'm not going to be around here all the time. I'm going to miss little Susie's baseball game or whatever because I have to go to work and I have to do this. But overall, this is going to, you know, help our family and, you know.
Well, as much as your discipline in terms of buckets may waver, I think also what your discipline looks like may change. So if, like in that situation, you might not be at dinner every single night, like if you weren't building a business, but can you commit to do 2 dinners a night? Can you commit to at least 1 sporting event on the weekend? Like if you can, it might change, whereas before you were at all of them and that was your discipline, and that's amazing. But if life circumstances change and you need to shift that, you can still be disciplined, it just might look different.
Yeah, for sure. That really encompasses at least my thought of discipline.
And again, I to leave like the one, to leave the one-liner, you can choose the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And the pain of discipline sounds better.
Well, that's the thing. That's where it comes into the instant gratification. You know, it's easier to sit on the couch and eat bonbons versus jump in that cold ass ice bath. It's way easier to do that. So, you know, that's. But
your pain of regret is more after. So that's what you mean.
There's literally nothing you can do about it. There's like, it's over. You're at the end of your life. You never did the ice baths. You never did the work with your wife. You never did you never built the business. That's it. You have to live with that.
That makes me think about, which
for
I could
a day.
Tie this into the discipline conversation, but so I'm a part of a membership and there is a deathbed meditation, and that kind of just brought that up for me, because you walk through being on your deathbed and like, what are moments that pop up for you? And if those are moments that you're like, wow, that would never actually happen because of the way I'm living now, you're not dead yet. You're not on your deathbed yet. So you do get to choose, and you do get to make choices about what your discipline looks like. So do that now, so you don't have the pain of regret.
Yeah.
Deathbed meditation. Look them up. There's probably many out there. Hopefully they're good.
Yeah, that's all we got though, as far as discipline goes. I think that we all have it to some degree. It's just comes down to what we prioritize in our life, and I'd highly encourage people to try to be as well-rounded as possible at the end of the day, because everything affects something else. Yeah, everything always affects something else, you know. So.
And if you're completely and totally undisciplined, like we talked about in the beginning,
there are some people out there like that.
Like we talked about in the beginning, start with what you can do.
Make small changes, you know, instead of, what?
That reminds me, did we talk about this last time? Maybe we did, but the 1% change. If you're in a plane and you change your flight pattern 1 degree, you're going to end up in a completely different part of the world. So if you choose a 1 degree change in discipline in this bucket or these couple buckets or whatever, after the long term, you will have drastically different life.
That came from a slight edge.
So I think we did talk about it probably last time, but I think it still applies. And
the compound effect also talks about if you, as far as weight goes, because it's always, I always say this, and I'll always say it, your body is the simplest thing to gain control of. Like it's the thing that you have 100% control over. No one else has any control over it, you know, outside of that. But if you go into relationships, finance, business, there's always outlying circumstances that can possibly happen. But you yourself have 100% control of your body. And so they talk about how if you subtract, you know, 200 calories every week because you decide to take out one candy bar, and then they break it down into, that's 800 calories a week. Well, then that's like a half a pound every month that you lose, and blah blah blah, because you take out that one candy bar, and then that adds up. Just that small discipline changes your whole life, because then you look at that and you say, okay, wow, I lost a half a pound every month, and then by the time I have a kid, I'm at normal weight, and then I teach my kid how to have the discipline that I have, and so on and so forth, and then that changes generations. So like if you look at my family, they're not in shape, they're not healthy. There's no one in my family that I can say that is healthy necessarily. I'm the first. I'm the one at my last. So, like, it all matters, man. It all matters.
Cool.
Wrap it up. Find
you
your
can.
shirt. Find your shirt.
I know I've been wearing one of his for the past, 3 weeks.
Follow us on
Instagram. Like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube. I've been meaning the past couple weeks when we say this part, looking back to see if there's any comments, because I don't get notifications. I just sometimes will catch them when I'm uploading videos and stuff, so I will check. But we would love to hear from you, especially if you are interested. Well, we just love to hear from you, period. But in terms of this podcast, are there things that you want to get more disciplined in, or what do your disciplines look like? We would love to get some feedback. I think you guys know plenty of ours, and I wanted to make sure we touched on things outside of just, I don't know,
our personal habits. And
right. And hopefully we did. I mean, a lot of them, again, when it comes to emotions and triggers and things like that, we do those also, but more than just working out, reading.
Typically, we try to talk about what we know and our own experience, right. Obviously. So, that's why it's probably pretty repetitive for some people, hearing about the ice baths and the waking up and whatever else. But that's literally the game, that's the game that we're in. That's the game
we're playing.
Yeah, that's the game that we decided that we want to do, and we'll start bringing in more habits as time goes in, because that's just how it is. But at some point, you gotta pick the most important ones, because you can't just do all day with habits. If you add one habit a month or one habit a year or whatever, and think of how many habits you'll have. So, and that all takes time, and that's why we get up early, because we set time aside for ourselves first before we even start the day, to get our mind right and to be disciplined. Because and there you go. That's how discipline offers freedom, because of we get up early and we do everything, we get our mind right, and instead of being controlled by every little event and habit, the kid spilt milk on the floor, and the parent gets all frustrated and freaks out, and kid, grab a towel and wipe it up and be done. But you can't do that if you don't have your mind under control, and that's where the freedom comes from. So,
okay, well, thank you for being here. We will catch you next week, and we look forward to hearing from you.
See you guys.
Bye.